Um, um, hi.
You don't upload for 4 damn months, and then come back like nothing happened? If I had half a mind, I'd erase your yes right now.
Let the damn man speak.
You fucking bitch.
UnderTale still to this day is one of the most fondly remembered games of the 2010s, next to literally Five Nights at Freddy's. The game has attained probably one of the biggest cult followings you will ever see, with the most dedicated fans ever, again only being followed up by Five Nights at Freddy's. Usually whenever you hear the term AU or alternate universes, you generally think of UnderTale, because its popularity after the initial game was built on the creation of these new stories from these creators, taking what Toby laid the groundwork for and doing something creative with their own little spin on the characters, or not even little, major spin on the characters. It's one of the main reasons why UnderTale is still decently alive to this day, whether it spans from FanGames, comics, online animations, shows, and music. The community has put the property on its back and carried it all the way over to the ends of the earth. And now it seems like it's breaking, everything's gonna be on fire. If you haven't heard the recent news, UnderVerse is going to be on a year-long hiatus after the next episode comes out. And believe it or not, UnderVerse is already at the cusp of its ending, really only having around 4 videos left to make before it's officially over. And it's something to think about, and it's honestly very important, considering the nearly 10 years UnderTale has been around, and the amount of time UnderVerse has been around being around 6 years, which is actually insane, to be honest.
Insane amount of stupidity. Why the hell am I so damn annoying in this show?
Maybe it's because you are.
Shut it.
Point being, once UnderVerse ends, and even during this hiatus, it will kind of start a new age of the UnderTale community. UnderVerse is the last current popular show from the early era of UnderTale. GlitchTale ended almost 3 years ago now and has left a pretty bad taste in people's mouths.
Oh! What the fuck?
And the Villain Sand Squad didn't even last long enough to be remembered. So we all really have right now as a collective is literally just UnderVerse, which so far out of those 3 is the best of the bunch by a mile. But I feel like in order to genuinely understand what I mean, we kind of have to go back into the beginning of the fandom's inception. Yeah, that's right, we're doing that type of video.
You're not special.
Shut up.
Bring it.
Degrees.
Oh my god. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
Holy shit, man! What the fuck was that? Oh my god!
No, that's not the fight. That is not the fight.
Okay, I knew it was gonna be hard, but fucking hell! 5 seconds into the battle, really?
The game of UnderTale was very different, as it was framed as your stereotypical RPG with obviously some of your basic, stuff you would find in them, like leveling, EXP, and turn-based fighting mechanics. But what made this game really stand out was the ability to flirt with this dummy. The subversion of expectations. That's one of the things I believe really made the game stand out amongst its RPG peers. It would break typical RPG tropes and really just discourage you from really fighting altogether and not level up or gain your quote-unquote EXP. It's heavily looked down on if you play this game like you're grinding experience in Final Fantasy. You will have consequences for your actions. Those kills will be remembered even if you reset the game. and the game creatively will change depending on what you do. Take for example the genocide. Not only will in the town people will be evacuated because you are literally murdering them, but the theme that will usually play on a regular route will be darkened, it would be turned more sinister, it will turn a lot more scary and more depressing. Because to them, you are a monster. You are murdering their whole race. So, yeah, that is one of the main things that you will find in this game that you will probably enjoy, even if some people will argue that the genocide route is probably the most tedious part of the game, but I'd say what it's going for, I like it. But other things that really made the game truly break out into popularity was the music and the characters. Especially the characters. The characters are honestly what made people fall in love with the game, and the writing only made them just so much more memorable. Taking Papyrus for example, he's probably the most lovable skeleton you will ever meet. Ever. And he's also pretty funny, just writing wise. And also go with Sans, who everyone loves, but I will get to him later. And even the music here are still used everywhere. And you also will be hard pressed to not find someone using UnderTale music in anyone else's videos, whether it be just a gaming video, just a commentary video, or whatever have you. Someone's using an UnderTale soundtrack somewhere. I mean, because Toby Fox is just very nice like that. He's letting people just use his stuff for free without, much copyright issues, which is always a plus. These major aspects of the game, being the characters, well, mainly the characters, were also kind of a point of toxicity for the community, I'll say that, and also, the heart-wrenching story and whatnot. People at this time, when Let's Players were playing the game for the first time, a good portion of them got first-hand spoilers because of the sheer amount of people who apparently just didn't care to get one's pure reaction to the game for some reason. Like Jacksepticeye will post his first gameplay of the video, and in the comments you see people spoiling about the genocide run, and he's playing the pacifist route. Like again, Jacksepticeye, literally, while he was playing the genocide route, people spoiled him about the Sans fight. So he really couldn't even fully enjoy the fight without, having to acknowledge that people had already told him about it. So we basically got robbed of that first time experience. And don't even get me started on Markiplier. I will get to that. I will never forgive y'all for what y'all did to Markiplier. Y'all, screw y'all.
Terrible music and even more horrendous anomalies. Somehow. Did we really know this filth taking up the multiverse?
What, like you?
I will annihilate you.
Anyway, we also had pretty good fan music all around. Some things in varying quality, but overall iconic in its own right. Some good, some not so good. It would be absurd of me to not really mention the song parody to end all sound parodies, being the one, the only, Stronger Than You. I'm sure I don't need to explain why this song from Steven Universe got popular with the UnderTale community, mainly because of the OG VA himself, DJ Smell, who voiced Sans. Probably the most iconic voice of Sans ever, as literally everyone, including myself, copies his Sans voice. And that completely blew up. Like, that parody of Stronger Than You with Sans singing it just completely blew up, and it only multiplied when that one infamous animator animated that particular cover, and the rest was history. While admittedly, the animation is a little bit dated on today's standards, but it's 8 years old, I don't expect it to be the greatest quality, it still was breathtaking for the time. This single song basically spawned more covers, and more covers. Hell, some of it wasn't even UnderTale related, it was sometimes just Sonic. And not even just song parodies. You could get actual parodies of the game itself being first done by Senior Pello, with probably the funniest summaries of the 3 endings of UnderTale ever. Aside from that, I feel like the most important thing to come out from the community was the breakout of fan stories and, of course, alternate universes. Funnily enough, nowadays AUs are purely associated with just sands and whatnot, because people, even myself admittedly, have made that the only character to use as a base. And if it's not Sans, it's Papyrus. And if it's not Papyrus, it's Gaster. But the first ever story, to my knowledge, was Dreamer Reborn, made on September 23rd of 2015, with, from what I can tell, being a plot where Azrael wakes up with the first end of the True Pacifist run, where Azrael wakes up after the True Pacifist ending where you fight, the god of Hyperdeath, and instead of going free, Frisk gives them their soul, and then Kara comes out of nowhere and goes Von Doom in the most out of character way possible, and just demands Azrael's soul and fights him and gets defeated. Yeah, you could tell this was the first ever story, huh? A lot of people don't remember it because of just how much stories would be made after it. But as the first, it was alright, with obviously many more stories to come, as Undertale's popularity just skyrocketed to the moon. Unfortunately, this is where we get into one of the main reasons why people don't like the early stages of the fandom, that being the Undertale fandom in the beginning. I would say it was probably considered one of the more toxic fandoms, especially like around the 2015 to 16 range, as stated in the era we're in. It took a good bit for this side of the fandom's toxicity to really die down over the coming years, and the sheer popularity of the characters of a particular skeleton was, well, to put it plainly, pretty fucking stupid. Like, as an example, I've stated before, Markiplier, who unfortunately wasn't able to finish his Let's Play series of Undertale and had to quit it doing one route, and that was it. If you don't know the context, basically around that time, Markiplier was doing a live stream charity event type of thing for the Let's Play of Undertale. When he was playing the game initially, he was playing it kind of his own way. People essentially got mad at him for playing the game how he wanted to play it for his first playthrough. And essentially he was harassed and bombarded to basically change his way of playing it into the way that they wanted him to play. And I can imagine that soured his ability to enjoy the game, and not to mention probably the amount of people spoiling the game for him.
Game is very special, and this game is incredible in its execution and its delivery of the story. I do feel like I missed out on it because people ruined it for me. Yeah. And like, I would have loved to have played this a year ago in my own time. What I should have done is I never should have done a Let's Play of it. I should have played it on my own, because this type of game is something that's special. It's fervent to want to talk about something afterwards and try to guide people towards an eventuality. I would have ended up exactly here, because there was no action that I took in this playthrough that we have done thus far that I would not have taken on my own. I would have jokingly been antagonistic towards people. I would have danced around with the idea of killing people. I would have but I would have been exactly here without killing a single person. And that's how I would have played the game. Even though this game is wonderful, I missed out on it because people tried to control it.
Yeah, you basically ruined Undertale for the man. I will never forgive y'all for that. Jacksepticeye was, I believe, out of the major Let's Players, the only one to actually complete the game through all 3 of its endings. I mean, it didn't really help with the spoiling y'all were doing. I don't know why y'all just love spoiling creators of having fun. It's the same thing with movies. It's why? But honestly, this pales in comparison to the amount of bullshit the fandom did with shipping. I don't know why, but it looked like the Undertale fandom has a knack for bringing in people who just love sending unnecessary death threats and disrespect to certain people and creators for the smallest of stuff. I'm sure some of you already know where I'm going with this, but There's a whole video documenting the situation in detail by Streamline Workshop, but in short, y'all take this stuff way too seriously, man. It's funny because Flowerfell was never even about chipping. The whole theme of the story was revolved around the Sands and a Frisk relationship, not a ship. It was just a friendship, and not France. But a lot of people were pushing for France in this story for some reason, and it basically they started harassing the creator, and then the creator stopped making stuff and basically canceled Flowerfell. Yeah, they basically got bullied off the face of the earth because of it. So, yeah, thanks for that. I don't know where the Flowerfell creator is anymore, and I hope that they're doing something better for themselves in the future and actually moved on from what happened. And of course, not to mention the flat out problematic stories that came from this time. A lot of us probably didn't question it back then, because I'm sure a vast majority of us were in our early to mid-teens when getting into the fandom. But of course, there were stories like PJ's daycare.
No, not another word that is thing. Even emotionless being like equally agree.
Glad we agree on something for once. Point proven. I guarantee you there's plenty more, like almost anything surrounding Underlust and how people perceived it. And then there's the big one of all. GlitchTale. Holy moly. Okay, I'm gonna talk about GlitchTale later on in the video, since it goes into another era of UnderTale history when it comes to the fandom. But oh boy, things get interesting. Sans was basically the guy that everyone ended up caring about the most post the release of UnderTale, mainly due to the ever so popular Genocide run.
Get out of my church.
Considering it was the only run where you actually fought Sans and saw the most of Sans throughout most of the game, even though he is pretty absent before you fight him, but I mean, that's besides the point. But aside of that, he's really just there. In the Pacifist and Neutral run, no matter what you do, he will just judge you. And depending on what you do, his dialogue will change, but he doesn't do anything unless it's a Genocide run. When you actually get to the ending of the Neutral and Pacifist, he's almost like a non-factor, because I don't even think he appears in one of them. And in the Pacifist run, he just gets jumped by Flowey. And just does nothing. The Genocide run is basically like the only path where you can really fight him, as I said before. Having arguably one of the 3 hardest fights in the game, really. I mean, not to me, of course. I'm a professional. But to a lot of people, it's really hard. And that single fight basically skyrocketed Sans into the moon. He was getting fangirls left and right. Songs were being made about him. Fan stories. And obviously enough, alternate versions of him, ranging from different variants of himself like Geno Sans, to just him being in a new story following the events of the game, like say Last Breath, or basically just being a completely different character entirely from what he was before, being either Ink Sans and technically Underswap Sans. But this kind of led to him and other characters being heavily misrepresented in comics and even some art. I would honestly say the biggest known example of this, at least when it came to this era of UnderTale, was Kara. A very big misinterpretation of Kara at the time was that Kara was basically the mastermind behind the Genocide run, and he was evil. Or they were the evil one, the villain of the story during the Genocide run, considering how they appeared to be by the end of the game. But what people just did not understand was basically the actual point of UnderTale. UnderTale throughout the entirety of the game is about choice. It is about what you do and how your actions will affect others. You made the action and you have to deal with the consequences. And the consequences of doing the Genocide run is essentially helping Kara think that genocide is okay, and that, well, you did everything to make a new world and move on to the next. And that's why no matter what, you and Kara destroy the world. Literally. Thankfully, however, this interpretation didn't really last too long in the fandom, and it was rectified, thankfully, by the help of a lot of people online, and primarily Fleur Marigold, who made a really good examination of this topic and basically broke it down so that now we're not actually thinking of Kara being the all-evil villain that people thought she was. And a lot of comics kind of also played on this idea that Kara wasn't actually the evil one, or kind of acted as it for more complex storytelling in some comics. But a person who didn't really get that treatment early on was Sans.
Absolute lump.
He was having a lot of different interpretations about him that would kind of change his character. Some would make him cry and act like an anime character, or fucking Deku. Some would make him overly cocky like an anime character. Some would do both. Not a lot of people seem to really get Sans' character at least somewhat close to how he is in the game, and kind of over-romanticized his iconic lines. You wouldn't believe the amount of fangirls that
You'd be dead where you stand.
just obnoxiously overused it. It quite literally took out a lot of the weight the line really should have had. A lot of people would take certain aspect of his character and, depending on the author, would crank it to 11 or would undercook it by making him a guy that loves to make your mom jokes. But generally speaking, Sans is the singularity, the character that divides between the main game and the AU community. But truthfully, a lot of iconic characters came from this separation of communities. Nightmare, Dream, Ink, Error, Fresh, Blue, Fell, Gino, and so on and so forth. So, you take the good with the bad, I guess.
What good? Do you realize what fandom you're talking about?
This was the era where I believe the creativity of authors and others really began to shine. This was around the time when I believe the fandom would really hit its peak and also plateau a bit when it came to its popularity, with a bunch of people creating some of the most iconic AU stories that are still being used today. The first example being UnderTale, being the literal first alternate universe created that was truly different from the actual main game. It wasn't like Geno Sans or Aftertale, where it basically just took the main story of UnderTale and just either expanded it into a different realm. No, this was just completely different. It was a different atmosphere, different world. You could honestly say different characters, because the UnderTale characters don't really act like the main verse characters, but they do still have qualities from the original AU. Okay, well, it's not exactly the original AU, because it's the original universe that every other universe comes from, so it's just... UnderTale was essentially just edgier UnderTale, really. It just made things more darker, made things a bit more depressing, and everyone kind of just took the motto, kill or be killed, to heart. And even then, UnderTale actually managed to get its own game, if I remember correctly. I don't know if it was finished or not. I'm sure editor me or whoever was editing this section will figure that out. And then we move on to another universe like UnderTale, which is basically just UnderTale but in space. And it was hailed as probably one of the most aesthetically appealing AUs ever. But aside from obviously more worlds and stories, this is where I believe the AU community really set itself from just being, oh, what if Sans did this instead of that type of deal, you know? This is also where works of FanGames and music, I'd say, truly just blew to the absolute moon. This was the era that had Disbelief.
Can you at least let me finish my goddamn shit?
And the game Horror Tale and Dust Tale. Plus even a stupid little game like GlitchTale. And, geez, even more songs. Of course, we got more parodies like Determination by DJ Smell, which was a parody of a Fall Out Boy song. And we even got more original songs like Down to the Bone by JT Music, which, fun fact, was their only Undertale song that they ever put out, or rap per se. Tryhard Ninja made a plentiful of songs, one of his more popular ones being Judgment, as it is revolving around Sans, so it's about Sans, it's gonna get popular.
Fucking life.
And Giveheart Records / Nate Wants to Battle also put out some really good songs as well. I'm actually sure a lot of you probably went, Nate made Undertale music? Yeah, he did. I mean, even I forgot as well. But yeah, he made some really good bangers, like listen to Ashes. And of course, DA games, but I mean, being real, they're just okay. Even Will would agree that they were far from his best work at the time. And that's kind of like only referring to actual songs that were sang with singers and with original beats and whatnot. I haven't even mentioned the plethora of themes. I've gone over them in my theme song video that I made a while back, so go check out that. And when it came to more YouTube stuff, I don't know if you remember, this was a pretty niche part of the community at the time, but I remember them. They were basically Undertale character reaction channels that would kind of do like a say-so voice acted impression of how the character you would think would sound like, and they would just react to whatever video was on YouTube that sounded fun to watch, I guess. I'm not even kidding, I genuinely used to watch a lot of these videos before they were eventually replaced with Gacha Life reactions. And obviously, you know, the influx of animators around this time who flocked in and made animations left and right. Some little one-off animations, other making small series that would gain a little bit notoriety. Or there were the big dogs. Okay, look, I know we all have our opinions on GlitchTale, but I can't just ignore it like it wasn't a major and very popular series in the fandom. Honestly, out of the two, the most popular, especially around Season 1. Literally, like every single video in Season 1 was getting at bare minimum around 10 million views. So for any GlitchTale haters watching, I know you probably don't want this series to really get that much praise, but I kind of have to. But, I mean, obviously, not just GlitchTale. Later on, UnderVerse would, you know, come around and break the scene, being more AU related than anything. And both kind of became the most iconic series for the fandom. Both would vary in quality, obviously, but still very popular. I would argue, obviously, that GlitchTale was the worst written of the two series. Plot holes and everything. It had very oddly written characters with a lot of oddly written character decisions. Iconic characters kind of getting killed off, only to come back real quick and then just die again without too much explanation. OCs that no one really cared about, that Camellia wanted to push in everyone's face.
This shit is ass.
And a pretty very decent villain that got switched off for black paper mache. But to say it didn't have any entertainment value, well, I'd just be lying. The animation, while traced at times, did look pretty good. If you just turn your brain off and, I guess, just enjoy it.
Honestly, you're being too nice about it. That shit is garbage.
Well, UnderVerse, on the other hand, is
overrated. Piece of garbage as well. How the hell do you have me, of all people on your show, and I get shit on the most?
Why do you act like you deserve anything more?
Oh, I know damn well you're not talking. You don't even have a shout out at all.
That's not my fault.
The only show you meet is Dr. Phil. Bitch.
Anyway, good lord. UnderVerse was arguably the better of the two, generally speaking. I've gone in depth with comparing the two series in one of my most popular videos on this channel. So again, if you want a more dedicated video kind of going over the two, I suggest you check that one out because I don't want to just repeat myself. In terms of the timeline where these two came out, they basically just seemingly blew up the moment that they came out. While UnderVerse didn't exactly have the same amount of instant success that GlitchTale had, not to mention the fact that the animation gets gradually and genuinely better with both. But what is undeniable was the impact that these two series had on the fandom, and really in their own separate ways. GlitchTale was a series more focused on following the main game continuity. It was focused more on going over characters, basically everyone from the main cast, barring some OCs here and there. UnderVerse, on the other hand, was more focused on AU's side of things, and being centered generally around a very sad universe in Xtale and Xgaster. These stories would go on for literal years, with GlitchTale having its finale in 2021, and UnderVerse is really only 4 episodes away from completion. I personally wanted to really go in depth with the games for at least this particular section, as these games would go on to really inspire future games. Obviously, Disbelief being like the main culprit of this era. Even though it wasn't initially a game, it started off as an animation. It did become one officially not finished and unofficially finished. The idea of multiple phases in the way that the game did probably led to one of the biggest tropes that you would find through a lot of OCs and a lot of other variants of the same character, including, Sans, but we'll get to that later. But at least specifically for Disbelief, it was fairly tame here. Well, at least as tame as you could get with Papyrus getting godlike powers for a whole phase and using it like a tennis racket. I digress. People in the fandom wondered, what if there was a 5th phase? And then someone made a little concept of what the Papyrus would look like for a 5th phase, which is him holding 2 bones behind his back. And then someone made a small little fan game of a fan game. Weird, I know. And then someone made a really good song for phase 5. And bing bang boom, you have an extended phase 5. Then someone wondered, what about a 6th phase? And then a 7th. And then a 8th. I don't even know what I'm looking at right now.
I don't think TT can morph like that.
I don't think bodies can glitch like you can, Eric.
No one asked you anything.
The fans who made these were low-key the reason why people kind of got sick of Disbelief, because it was getting to a ridiculous point. I mean, for Christ's sake, there's literally a whole video that goes from phase 1 to 30. But I mean, aside from that, there were also a lot of games that a lot of people would probably forget were around. There was a whole Underswap game, Underfell game, Dusttail game, and a 2D Horrortail game that I'm sure a lot of people remember for the time, but a lot of people forget. And of course, the greatest game of all time, Clickerton! Now this is just flat out where the UnderTale community was literally just dead. Or at least this is where it was the most dead. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. This was around a time when Toby Fox was basically focusing all of his attention into Deltarune. And the closest thing we got to an update was UnderTale being released on Switch and Xbox One. That was it. A vast majority of anything that would relate to UnderTale would just memes. And honestly, it low-key made a lot of people not want to associate with UnderTale that much, I'm not even gonna lie. And in 2018, it was especially prominent on TikTok. Was essentially, like, at least from what I remember, the very main driver of these memes. This was back in like early TikTok, where there was significantly less restrictions than what you could do now. Around that time, people were completely using the app ironically, because around that time it was basically just Musical.ly 2, if any of you remember that, where a lot of memes from 2018 came from. And one of those was the stupid and absolutely annoying overuse of Megalovaina.
Oh, fuck!
You deadass could not go more than like 2 videos scrolling on this cursed app without firstly finding a hit or miss, I guess you never miss, meme, and also a goddamn Megalovaina or Sans meme in general. Extra points if he's doing a default stance with a poorly cropped green screen. And honestly, it didn't even stop at TikTok. You'd go on YouTube, Owl City Megalovaina. Look over again, Memo number 5, Megalovaina. Look over again. Default dance Fortnite cover.
You look absolutely fucking ridiculous.
Ain't this you?
I hate you.
And this oversaturation honestly made a lot of people really sick of hearing most things UnderTale related, and made a lot of people, even me admittedly, just avoid Megalovaina like it was the plague. Cause I was so sick of hearing Megalovaina and all of the covers, and especially the original. Even now, I don't even go out my way to listen to OG Megalovaina. Cause I mean, like, it's just kind of sad because like the song's good, like the song's really good, but people got too into it, dude. Though I will admit, looking back at them, those covers really did sound really good. Not to mention the lots of cosplays. Now this was the era where everyone started to really go in depth with the power scaling side of the community. I went into more detail about how odd power scaling can be in general with UnderTale, or even with AUs in this video. Please watch. But in short, people were really starting to overpower their original characters around this time. And one of the main people who were heading this was the Era 404. Along with the vast majority of AlphaTale and the Godverse in general, and even a little bit of GlitchTale. GlitchTale had this little run of OP characters, in particular Betty Noir, since apparently people considered her a Mary Sue-like character, considering the fact that she would gain some new ass power out of her arson almost every time she fought. Like literally, like look at almost every single fight that Betty had in the show. She just randomly had some power just come up out of nowhere. Writing 101. Plus the influx of fans who just started making the most overpowered Sans of all time, ranging from Era 404 to a little bit weaker ones like King Multiverse to
444. You know, he's really not all he's cracked up to be. Anyone with a real name is William is someone to be truly feared. Ooh, spooky.
Isn't that him behind you?
What? You're not funny. Shit! Run! Run for your fucking life!
At one point, 404 was literally in the top 10 most broken characters in fiction, before being overtaken by even more broken and overpowered characters in fiction. But the fact that he was even in that list, or was even in a discussion at one point, is literally insane. And in the midst of all this power scaling and whatnot, came, of course, Toxicity. While I've never personally experienced it, or there are that many like public examples out there, there have been times, from what I heard, where people's characters were so overpowered that the UnderTale AU wiki was just taking them down because they were so stupid. And now, here we are. If you're wondering why it would be called the Nostalgia Era, it's mainly because we're closing in on 10 whole years of UnderTale. It's only a year away. And these days, people have started to really look back on UnderTale with big tinted nostalgia glasses, and really understand a lot of the messaging that the game had to offer. I feel now we've grown up to understand these characters a lot better now, most particularly Sans. As said in the Let's Player Era section, a lot of depictions of Sans regarding his personality weren't exactly the most accurate. Nowadays, people have taken a much more simpler, but you could say more subtle approach to the character that some would say is closer to how he actually is in game. Now, realistically speaking, we'll literally never know how he reacted to, say, Papyrus's death, since it's never shown. But given some clues, like in one of the many phone calls you get in Sans and the Neutral Run, you would definitely be pissed.
End your fucking life.
I would also be remiss to ignore the just still growing amount of new stories and AUs still being made to this day. Not to mention the talent from animators, artists, voice actors, to content creators like yours truly.
No one knows you.
You are so lucky people are obsessed with you.
It's not my fault that people are obsessed with me. I just happen to have something that you'll never obtain.
Wait, so you want this on your record?
What the fuck? What the fuck?
I say a lot of why this era is associated with nostalgia is, well, mainly because of the 2020 pandemic. Like a lot of things, we were all stuck in our homes, so I'm sure a lot of people came back and looked into the past and just got reattached into something that they held dearly when they were a kid. Also, the memes that came from here, especially during 2021, were like genuinely hilarious. I can't even lie. But if there was one thing I'd say that defined this current era of the UnderTale community is the sense of finality. This was the era that had the Villain Sand Squad make its super popular entrance before being completely canned. This era marked the end for GlitchTale, as its finale would come in late 2021. Ironically, at the same time frame that the Villain Sand Squad last episode would come out. Just more salt in that wound. Right now, the legit last show from early era UnderTale is UnderVerse. I would say this is probably the turn of a new saga for the community, and I believe it will come pretty soon after the 10th anniversary. I do not know if we will truly have a series like UnderVerse or GlitchTale again, if ever. Like, yeah, we have comic series that get dubbed and it gets some form of notoriety, but you'll be hard pressed to find someone who will do what Jakey and Camellia did for almost a decade. Not to say this era wasn't filled with its own amount of problems. You remember all that bad stuff I was hinting about earlier with Camellia? Yeah, it's really bad. The sheer amount of stuff Camellia got herself involved in was honestly ridiculous. Some of it didn't even involve GlitchTale itself. It was just literally the personality of Camellia. Like, I don't know if anyone remembers like the Hopeless Peaches drama. Yeah, that was a can of worms. A lot of the 2020s was spent, calling out many kid diddlers. And while I don't think Camellia was one of them, I think, she did say, she said this.
From reading or getting this issue and, be present as a spectator, let's be real, you don't deserve an apology for being groomed.
Wow. I got nothing for that, pal. That's all you.
Yeah, moving on from that, I do hope for some sort of way to fill that void. It's gonna be very weird not having like an ongoing series once it's all said and done. I mean, think about it. We've had some sort of ongoing series going out since the release of UnderTale. And even now with this hiatus, it's gonna feel very weird. Which brings me to the main point of this video. The main point of this whole video, I guess, is how will the community end up during this hiatus? And especially after the 10th anniversary. It's a hard question that I don't think many people can really pinpoint. Some will most likely point to the toxicity, and rightfully so, and pretty much how it could potentially increase over the next coming years. Because, yeah, this fandom has had a very big toxicity problem. Again, UnderTale does not have your normal community per se. The basis for this community being able to stay alive for as long as it has is quite literally because of the fans. And fans can be unpredictable. With how many there are, you might get a creator who has a great story that everyone loves and gets super popular, but they're a horrible person and a jackass. The fuck? Or you can get a really good person who actually makes a good story, but their stuff doesn't really get generally that popular. You don't really see a lot of people really talking about it, and it kind of, in the end, may unfortunately fade into obscurity. An example of this, of a story that doesn't really get that much notoriety that I absolutely wish it did, is the story of Dr. Megalo by Artsy Rian. I hope I said that right. I hope I didn't butcher it. I know you're watching this. I hope I didn't butcher your name. In my opinion, this is probably one of the most well-written and best-made stories out there. I won't go into too much detail, but I will send a link of the story in the description of the video. All I will say is, it should have way more notoriety than it has now. It's quite literally a reimagining of the DustTale storyline, but kind of significantly better. But the story is framed like you are playing it like UnderTale. It's not a multiverse story like UnderVerse. It's one of the very rare times someone uses the base game UnderTale and the stories and its concepts and whatever Toby Fox had in mind when creating the game to its fullest and still create a compelling story without, needing to really go too far out there when it comes to, characterization and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? You're not really looking at this and saying, Sans would not act like that. For the most part, anyway. There are obviously moments of mischaracterization, but honestly, I don't care. It's just that good. The majority of it is written pretty well, even if only not that much of it is in comic form. Overall, I mean, just from the notes I saw, it's really good. I just wish certain series managed to, do that consistently, or at least more series would be like. I just feel like this discussion is worth a good deep dive. So I will leave it to you guys to what you think, how the following community will be following the hiatus of UnderVerse. I just said following twice. Personally, I think the community will kind of go back into like that dormant time around, late 2017 to 2020 where we were practically high and dry and it just nothing really happened. I mean, it kind of is like that now as we are entering past like the nostalgia era where we're not exactly going back to UnderTale since you already, did that. Since, again, most people's attention is going to be on Deltarune. Deltarune right now well, not right now, since, no chapters have come out yet, but once a new chapter comes out, the popularity is going to skyrocket, and most people are not going to care about UnderTale, or even most things AU related. Everyone's going to focus on Deltarune. And but the difference between, the dead meme era and what we might go through in the future is that in the dead meme era, we still had UnderVerse. We still had GlitchTale going on, keeping us, still feeding us with content. We won't have that going into this, or at least after this, we probably won't have anything. Obviously, unless like the big show comes around to take the mantle that UnderVerse had. And I guess the broken, torn up, burnt to a crisp mantle that GlitchTale left.
Hey, less run stories, less anomalies for me to clean up. I'd be absolutely fine with that.
I hope you lose that sexy man tournament.
In your dreams, short ass.
God dang it. Whew. Wow, holy moly. Yeah, I did not think I'd make this video as big as it did, but I just wanted to come back with at least something fairly big to compensate for my stupidly long absence I've had from YouTube. And I am genuinely sorry for that. There was a video that I really wanted to release beforehand, but the ambition of it kind of slowed it down, so that I am very sorry for. I just wish I wouldn't stop this soon, because I'm literally like so close to hitting 2,000 subscribers. I just hope this video doesn't flop, honestly.
I hope it does.
Shut up.